Hello there, and welcome to the Content Legends podcast. I'm your host, Jessica A. Walker. I also go by Joe, which is Jessica Advocates Wellness. And I decided to record episode one here of the podcast and just kind of give you some overall context to why I decided to create the Content Legends podcast. Like I said, my name is Jessica, and I started a research institute, right? My research institute is called the Jaw Research Institute. Jaw, like I said before, is for Jessica Advocates Wellness. And what I've done is, let me take a step back here, actually. Let's start at the beginning, right? So, as a mother of six children now, but back in my day, I started off. Let me just give you some context of me. You know what? I was gonna kind of just go over why I started the podcast and kind of the whole basis for it, but I think I wouldn't do justice to my podcast by not providing you with some of my history and how I began. All right, so let's do that. So let's start from the beginning, the very, very beginning of where this began, right? I grew up in Richmond, California. Richmond, California is known on the FBI's most wanted, or the FBI's list of one of the most dangerous cities in California. And I'm not sure what number it is now, but it used to be like in the top 10, I believe. I was a teenage mom. I had my daughter at the age of 17 officially. I was officially 17 by the time I had her. I was pregnant at 16. So at the time, I was like in the boom of the 90s, right? The 90s were hip hopping with teen pregnancy, and I was right in the midst of that. Her father ended up going away to university, to P University. For you guys that are in the hood, know what that is. And I ended up raising my daughter with my mom. A couple of years after that, I met my husband. And I don't know if this is too much TMI, but I'm just going to tell you anyway, because I'm an open book anyway, so it's all good. My husband and I have now been married for what year are we at? We're 2017 dang near, almost 2017. We've been married for 17 years now, almost 17 years. We got married in 2000, July of 2000. So almost 17 years now. We've been married, and that brought along another good 5 kids. So about what year was that? 2000. Let's see. My son is 2005 or so. I ended up going through a really bad time in my life. By this time, I had a total of 3 kids, and I was pregnant with my fourth. And I was pregnant with my son. During my pregnancy, it was in very early stages of my pregnancy, and my brother was murdered. That came as the biggest shock, because it was, of course, it was out of nowhere. It happened. He was actually murdered on the freeway, and on Highway 80, and he was actually the driver of a car. Was able to, after he was shot in the head, pull the car over to the side, and ended up not parking the car, but he ended up crashing. But he was able to get off. I don't know how he did this, but anyway, he ended up getting off of the freeway and crashing on the side of the freeway. And for me, during that time, my brother, Anthony Cardell Robinson, he was like one of my kids. I'd taken care of my brother for, gosh, since he was a baby, really, truthfully. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, being honest with myself, while I was growing up, I was raising both of my brothers. My mother worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs. She never got any sleep. She would work continuously, and I took care of my brothers. That was my job. It was my thing to do. So even before I was pregnant with my own daughter, I'd already had children. I'd already taken care of my younger siblings. And I know for a lot of us, you may be wondering why I'm telling you all this good stuff, but it really, truthfully, I'm coming around full circle. There is a reason why I'm telling you all of this. Um, I'm telling you all my business, just all my business, letting it all hang out, right? I'm the only thing I'm leaving out is the color of my drawers right now. But anywho, so my brother was murdered. Uh, he that like I said, I was his, yeah, I was like his parent, right? That was my son. That was like one of my kids, to say the least. And I was heartbroken. I mean, my soul. I felt like a piece of me had been ripped out, and it took a really long time for me to. And I really, truthfully, I don't even now. I still don't feel whole, And I think that when we lose a loved one, we always have a piece of us, especially in a traumatic way, like I lost my brother in a violent way. There's always a piece of us that never gets repaired. There's a piece of us that hole in our heart that never gets filled. Um, so he passed away 7, 8 days. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere around there after he was shot, and I found out I was pregnant. Found out I was pregnant with my fourth child. And at that time, I mean, if there was a time when you don't want to find out you're pregnant, it was definitely then. Um, and at a time when you're supposed to be happy, you can feel nothing but sadness and grief because you just lost a loved one. And um, I had my son. So fast forward, I had my son, and I almost lost my son. I started to hemorrhage, and I almost lost my son in the hospital. And I remember being in a hospital and thinking, oh my gosh, I can't lose another life right now. Um, and he fought through. I call him my little soldier, my little warrior, because he fought through. I ended up giving birth to my son and really falling into a really deep depression. I think a piece of that was the loss of my brother, but also a piece of it was postpartum as well. I was sad, I was angry. And at that point, truth be told, at that point, I didn't know that I had gone through postpartum depression before. This feeling was all too familiar to me. So turns out I had gone through postpartum depression with my daughter, who I'd had a couple of years before, with my third child. And I didn't know it at the time. So I didn't know I had gone through depression with my third child. I didn't know I had gone through depression. I think actually I had gone through depression as a teenager with my first as well. I just didn't know. But this feeling is all too familiar, right? It's like I had slipped back into a comfortable state of being depressed, of being not wanting to do anything, not wanting to do what excited me, not wanting to be around anyone, um, calling myself a failure, thinking a lot of negative thoughts about myself, and truthfully thinking a lot of times about hurting myself and harming myself. I never thought about harming my kids at all, but I definitely had thoughts of not wanting to live anymore. I had thoughts of not wanting to be here, and that I was unworthy of life, and I um, that ultimately I had no value. Like, why am I even here? I can't do anything right. I'm a total mess up. Look at me. I have all of these kids. And it's funny how society kind of does that to women. It's so crazy. Like, we are the birthers of human beings. Humans. We give whole humans, right? It's a miracle. It is something that should be, I mean, every time it happens, the woman should be celebrated and uplifted, but society kind of tears us back down and goes, oh, you did that again, huh? It's like, really? We keep the world going. We keep the world going. We keep human beings existent. But anyway, I digress. I don't want to get up on that topic. Girl and boy, whoever you are listening to me, that will take me all day. I'll do a whole nother podcast dedicated to that. But anyhow, so I had all of those thoughts, and I, slipped back into it. I came out of it somewhat when I was told that I had depression. I was told by a physician at my son's actually, so it was a pediatric physician that told me that I was depressed. And I was like, yeah, right. Okay, we done been through slavery. We done been through the civil rights movement. If we could go through the Middle Passage and my people can make it through that, ain't no way no black person is depressed. That's for them other people. That's for them other folks, some Caucasians. So, and I'm just being real with you. So don't get mad at me. Don't send me angry messages. I'm just being real with you, right? That I was just in that state of like, please. And that is not what happens to me nor to my people. And that is something that I think we've come out of now. But that was the way that it was. If we had a family member that had a mental illness, you either acted like it didn't exist or you just said that they were special. Oh, they just special. They just special. Or, like they had some physical ailment to them. Or you totally ignored it. Or you just said, we don't get depressed. Like, suck it up. Be happy. Go pray about it. And put on some lipstick and some heels, for us women. And live your life, right? Just don't worry about it. Everything will be okay, baby. It's all good. But what I started to do was, so after he told me that, and I told him he was totally nuts, uh, and he gave me medication. I'm like, dude, please, I'm not taking no medication while I'm breastfeeding and nursing my child. That's not happening. Um, I already don't take meds on a normal. Like when I have a headache, I'm like, I just lay down and go into a dark room or whatever. Medications are not my thing. But I digress. So he told me that. I'm like, yeah, not happening. And this is with my son now. So fast forward now a couple of years, and I'm pregnant with baby number 6. So number 5, I don't even think I think I may have gone through a bit of postpartum, but I don't think I had the time. And I don't know if you even understand what that means, but like I went back to work. I was like, like I didn't even have the time to take notice of myself during that time. Um, so I went back to work and got pregnant with number 6, and that's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. With number 6, I had postpartum and during my pregnancy, um, I was just in total utter state of, just feeling down and just horrible. And once again, that feeling felt all too comfortable to me. So I started to do some research. So actually, what happened was I was sitting in my room, and my son came into my room, and he said, "Mom, why are you always so sad?" And I I couldn't say anything. Number one, the only thought that went through my head was, how does he know? How did he know? Because from up to this point, I thought I did a pretty good job of hiding it. I would cry in the shower. My kids wouldn't see me cry. And I cried almost nightly. I would cry in the shower. I would, my dress, I think, if dressing wasn't an indicator, I don't know what else was, but I wore this ugly orange scarf. I wore flip flops no matter the weather. If it was raining outside, I had flip flops on, pajamas, whatever. Like, I really just didn't care. I let my appearance slip and I let my breath stink. And, that was just what it was. I didn't brush my teeth. I was just like, ugh, it was just a problem. It was a problem. Um, and my son kind of pulled me in to the side and he said, well, he didn't pull me to the side. He actually just, he made me aware that he was aware. And just knowing that he was aware was enough for me to go, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. No, that's not going to happen. So I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize the person that stared back at me. I didn't even know what I looked like. It had been that long since I really like looked in the mirror. You go past the mirror, you pass it up, what have you. But to really take a step and really just look at yourself is completely different. So I looked at myself and I said, there's no way I'm allowing this to take over my life, and there's no way I'm allowing this to interfere with my children's life anymore. So I started doing some research, and I found out that Postpartum depression is very, very prevalent in the Black community, and it's very prevalent, just for women in general. And I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to be that voice that advocated for women. So I started to go around and do some research and everything, and I bumped into a couple of different blogs. And I remember running into this woman, running into a blog where this mom was talking about depression, and I was like, you know what? I need to do something like this. I need to talk about kind of the things that women go through, that mothers go through in motherhood. And, I wanted to talk about the light side as well as the darkness, but I wanted to make light of some of the darkness, right? I wanted to crack jokes because that's me. All through my depression. So don't allow anyone to kind of tell you they're not depressed because they're laughing. You can laugh and be depressed. You can have on the mask that Maya Angelou talks about in her poem and laugh, and chuckle. But deep inside, you feel like you are dying from the inside out. You feel like your life is nothing, like you don't exist. So don't allow anyone to try to tell you that just because they're outside, or don't think that. Let me just say it like this. Let me put it this way. Don't think that just because on the outside someone looks perfect and they look like, or not perfect, but they look like they're happy, they look like they have reached a certain level of success, they look like they're all together, right? They look like they're put together, because looks can be deceiving. And the inside, they can really be tormenting themselves and going through something inside of their minds, right? We can do nothing without the mind. And that's ultimately true. So with that in mind, I started the Jaw Research Institute. I started actually Mama Me Network. Mama Me Network is a nonprofit organization helping women combat some of the depression, or helping women combat some of the negative images and negative messages, right? And also uplifting and inspiring by promoting positive messages and inspiration, right? We help women going through depression, stress, and anxiety, primarily mothers who are going through depression, stress, and anxiety. But we also have some teens that I've helped through the program as well. Some teen moms that I've gone to the juvenile detention center and spoken to a lot of the mothers there. These are teen moms, 13, 14 years old, that have 2 or 3 kids. Here's the reason why. A lot of the things that are happening in our school system, the bullying, the low grade point averages, the gangs, a lot of the things that are related to that, or because the mother is going through something. Usually the mother is the one that stays back, is in the household. And that's not to take away anything from you dads out there, because there are some dads that also stay in the household and the moms leave, right? And vice versa. But if a mother, usually the mother is primary caretaker of the family, so that's why I chose to go for the moms. The mother is the one, if she's going through something, her child is going to internalize that as though something is wrong with them, right? So we have to take care of the chicken before the egg. We have to take care of our mothers. We have to provide our mothers with resources, provide our mothers with something they didn't have. It's so easy for us to blame an adult for making bad choices, to blame an adult for the way that their life has turned out, to blame an adult for just their overall life and what they're going through. And it's your fault that you're going through this, right? But we don't take the time out to really step back and go, hey, what about their childhood? What about the way they grew up? What about what their mother was going through? What about those experiences that they went through, right? So we really need to take all of that in context. So training our mothers, empowering our mothers, knowing that not everyone grew up the way that we did, right? I think for some of us that, for me, I had a wonderful childhood experience. My mother, I wouldn't say it was wonderful. Let me take that back. It was, although I lived in the hood, I was happy, right? Let me put it that way. I didn't even know I was in the hood until somebody told me that it was the hood. I thought that everybody had gunshots at the middle of the night at their house. Hey, I just thought it was something that happened. And yeah, it's not. Not everyone has a broken fence, Not everyone's mom worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I really truthfully, but I was happy, even with those hood sounds, the comforting sounds of the hood. I was happy. And my mom, lived through in my phone. My mom was there, but she was there in audio, right? But whenever we had something that was of experience, she was there. So, we needed her to volunteer at school, or, we had a presentation or whatever. She was there. She made sure she was there. So we have to understand that not everyone grew up with that, though. Not everyone grew up with that context, even with the exposure that I had with my very loving and very appreciative mother and my father that was kind of in and out, the Rolling Stone he was. He will still show up to those experiences, and he still instilled in me my work habits, my ability to be confident, my laughter, my humor, my personality. He still instilled those things in me whenever he showed up, whenever he felt like showing up. Um, but I have to understand, when I look at another adult's life, or I look at another woman's life, another mother, I have to understand that she may not have gotten that same experience, and her experiences are completely different from mine, and that's okay. And there are some things that she needs to learn, and vice versa. There's just some things that I need to learn. I didn't learn a lot of things until I got older. So, with all of that being said, we have to understand that our children, and their behaviors and the way that they act, and what they're doing in school is all deprived from their parents, right? And their parents are experiences and all that stuff. It's deprived from their parents, so on and so forth, right? So, with all of that being said, I think this is a great segue of why I started the Jaw Research Institute. So, the Jaw Research Institute, um, because I know behavior and because I research behavior, I want to know why certain people chose the path less taken, right? I want to know why some people are successful and others are not. I wanted to know why um, some people choose to steal and others don't. Why some people go on, start using drugs, and why others don't. Why is it that we buy? What is that behavior behind that? Why do we consume? As a culture, just as a culture, why do we consume more than any other culture? What is it in us? And I'm talking about the African American experience right now. And I'm only speaking from my experience. Why does it seem as though we can consume so much, but we make so little? We create so little. So I want to research that. And I want to research the way that marketing, branding, and content has an effect on our lives and drives our behavior. I think that whatever you look at, behavior, I'm a psychology student, right? I love psychology. I'm a psychology nut. And a lot of this stuff is just innately in me. It's funny because when I was in school, I didn't even read the book. Well, I did. I take that back. Sometimes I would read it, sometimes I would not, depending on the interest level. But the majority of the context that I got from the things that I've already read when I got into my higher courses, I would get, the teacher would ask questions, the professor would ask questions, and I would always know the answer. And people would go, "Did you read it?" And I'm like, "No." I just innately knew it. I innately knew because it made sense to me. And I think we all have something in us that innately in us is in our DNA. It's passed down from our ancestors that we just know. We know that content like the back of our hand. Some people are just writers. They just write because it's innately in them. Like if they went and they researched way, way back in the day, in the royal times or whatever, and the what is that time called? In the time when we were like riding horses and stuff or whatever, they would probably see that their ancestors were writers, right? And for me, I would know that a lot of my ancestors were probably researchers. They were technically inclined. They were the ones that kind of, figured out things without having to read the instructions, right? So that type of thing. So that's why I started the Jaw Research Institute, because I wanted to do research, because I found that a lot of the research that was done on behavior, on in psychology, all that good stuff, didn't really take into account Black culture. It didn't take into account Asian culture most of the time. It didn't take into account Latino culture. It didn't take into account just other cultures other than specifically narrowing down on how it affected this culture. Now, I think there is more research out there now than there had been before. And I'm definitely not talking in the medical aspect, because in the medical aspect, we had all kinds of experiments done on us, but that's for a whole nother day, for a whole nother podcast. So Content Legends. Content Legends is a podcast that I put together so that I can give you all a lot of this research, so that I can share with you all the way that our content, the way that Black content has given gifts to the world, legendary content, our culture. I think a lot of people like to speak of the culture. A lot of people like to speak about the culture, but not too many people speak from inside of the culture. I wanted to give our culture a voice. I wanted to give a voice to the people that are in it every single day, the people that have created something from it, the content creators, what their gifts are to our world, right? Because I feel like a lot of people celebrate, they celebrate the artist, and that's cool. You celebrate the person that's, the singer, and I think that they have their certain level of what they bring to the element as well. But behind the scenes, the people that are behind it, that actually sit down and write the blog posts, that write the marketing messages that we see every day, that go through our news feed, that emotionally connect to us and make us want to buy something. I wanted to talk to those creators. I wanted to talk to the producers behind the scenes. Because whenever I work with any of my clients, I'm their producer. I'm not their coach. I'm their producer. I am their partner, if you will. We are coming together to be successful in business for your business, because my client's success is ultimately my success. So I really wanted to have a podcast because I didn't see anything out there in the podcasting world that talked about the marketing, the branding, the content creation in the way that I wanted to hear it. I think there are a lot of podcasts out there that talk about branding. There are a lot of podcasts out there that talk about online business and entrepreneurship. There are a lot of podcasts out there that talk about history and what the newest movie is, blah, 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 or what they like, or what's kind of trending right now. And I think that's great. I think that's all of that is a great, awesome content. But nobody really goes back and looks at our historical context. Nobody actually goes back and goes, okay, so how do we get from there to here? And it was the kind of same things that I was seeing in maternal health. When we talked about depression, when we talked about postpartum depression, nobody's really going back and going, the reason why Black women are highly on this high spectrum of depression is because of our historical context, because of slavery, because of post-traumatic slave disorder, like Dr. DeGruy talks about, Joy DeGruy. It's because that we have been exposed to a traumatic experience, and not just once, not just twice, but over and over and over again, over centuries, over time, over and over and over again. I mean, we don't go through 200 years of slavery and just nothing happens here, people. None of our generations feel it. Nothing happens. I think that pain, that suffering, all of that comes through our songs. It comes through our music. It comes through our films. It comes through our moms. It comes through this little old mom here in Sacramento, California, who has 6 kids and didn't know why she was feeling the way she was feeling. It comes through. So I wanted to really look at that. So here on this podcast, I'll be talking to some wonderful, wonderful content creators who are going to be sharing their experiences, are going to be sharing kind of their historical context and how they became who they became. What happened to them? And I tell you right now, if I had better grammar skills, I would have been an investigative reporter. And now with Grammarly that you can just put on your computer, maybe I will go ahead and look into that, that career path. But for right now, I'll stick with my videos. Thank you. But we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at and investigating and researching how they became who they are. I love biographies. And in every biography I've ever watched, listened to, what have you, even in my own life, I've noticed that it's always been a piece of content that has moved me forward, that has impacted my life in some way, shape, or form, that has gotten me motivated, inspired to do something, to make some type of change happen. So I'm going to be talking to those people. I'm going to be talking to those change makers, those people that are out there that are creating change in their environment, either directly or indirectly, that want to take their content and what they have and give it as a gift to the world and leave it behind as legendary content to not only help themselves but help others. So, in just a bit, I'm going to be playing a piece of some of my pre-recorded podcasts. Believe it or not, I've recorded this podcast like 3 times, 3 different times now. So I'm going to be playing for you all some of the pre-recorded content that I put together because I don't want to lose any of that. But yeah, that's the reason why I created the Content Legends podcast. So I look forward to speaking with you here on the podcast. I look forward to many, many episodes. And without further ado, here is the rest of episode 1. And I cannot wait to either meet you in person or to talk to you online. Wishing you wellness in life and in business. Peace. Well, not peace, because you got to listen to the rest of the podcast. Well, stay here. Thank you. It's something that is driven and deprived. I mean, you can read as much as you want to read on it, and everything I'll tell you from all of this research that has been previously done. Unfortunately, that research has not been embedded and done with African Americans in mind. So that is why I call my institute the Jaw Research Institute, because I would like to research, and this is kind of my way of, so to speak, quote unquote, researching and finding out in our community of content creators what they give to our culture and what they give to our community. You know, I believe that everything that we do. Okay, so I'm gonna use this, an example because I'm getting kind of lost here. I have a Ferrari brain, so sometimes my Ferrari drives a little too fast. So let me slow down. I believe that everything that we consume is then embedded in us in some way, shape, or form. We suppress it. We can either suppress it or it's in our subconscious, and that drives our behavior. And that's exactly what it does. Welcome to the Content Legends podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, but you can call me Jaw, which is Jessica Advocates Wellness. Content Legends provides the behind-the-scenes look, history, feel, and emotion behind content. Interviewing content creators, researching, and reviewing content of old and how it can be used to tell stories of new. Join us as we explore how content rhythm is life and life is rhythm. Let's make it happen. My name is Jessica A. Walker. I am the president and CEO of the JawResearchInstitute.com, which is an online education institute where we teach entrepreneurs, we teach physicians, we teach mothers. We are all about maternal health and empowerment of our community and uplifting and motivating our culture and just empowering others with the information that we have so we can get out here and create a new generation of hope, happiness, and empowerment. And, hopefully erase racism and empower others to get out there and do whatever it is that their purpose is on their heart and live a purpose-filled life. So with that being said, we advocate for wellness in life and in business, and we mean the whole definition of wellness. So with that being said, that's who I am. A little bit about me. I will do another podcast which we will call Who is Jessica? Who is Jaw? I just really go by Jaw, which is Jessica Advocates Wellness. As you can hear, I'm fighting off a bit of a cold, but I really want to get this podcast out there because excuse me, I've done so many interviews, and that's how you know that this is like God winking at me, because I have had like literally interview after interview of great, wonderful content legends. That's what I'm going to call them. They are content legends. Now let's take a look at the definition of content.
Dictionary.com defines content: something that is contained. The subjects or topics covered in a book or document. The chapters or other formal The chapters or other formal divisions of a book or document. Something that is to be expressed through some medium, as speech, writing, or various arts. A poetic form adequated to a poetic content. Okay, a significance, substantive information or creative material viewed in contrast to its actual or potential manner of presentation. So I like that. Definition. So with that being said, that is what Content Legends is all about. Content Legends is about the content of the content of old and how it creates of new. So I've kind of talked about that in with more of a description at the beginning of this podcast, but that's basically what I was saying in a nutshell. It's looking at the content of old and how it creates the content of new. So, for instance, Tupac, right? How his content was created of old, right? He uses a lot of like older tracks on his songs. Prince uses Prince is just in general. Prince's content is legendary. Okay, legendary. It is something that will stay here forever, and it's something that will stay on repeat. All right, Shakespeare. Even though say what you may say, Shakespeare's content is something that will be here for a long, long time, for forever. I think that in the year 2029 or 20, I don't know, what's a far year? 3039, they will still be reading Shakespeare in the classrooms. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know if they're going to have some virtual book or something. I don't know. But anyway, they will still be reading it. Martin Luther King, they will still be going over his I Have a Dream speech. If someone were to listen to their speeches right now, it would instantly give them empowerment upon hearing their names. Upon hearing their names, MLK and Malcolm X instantly give empowerment. Langston Hughes. So I wanted to end this podcast with Langston Hughes. And of course, there are a gazillion other legendary content makers, but I just wanted to give you a kind of a small list. I could go on and on and on, and I'm sure we could have a whole podcast dedicated to just a list of shout outs. But you get the gist. I just wanted to give you a small snippet of what I was talking about. Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes is a legendary content creator. Langston Hughes created a poem, and I'm going to just read one of his poems, the one that stuck out to me. Recently, I sat in my daughter's classroom at her school, and it only gave a snippet of his poem, and basically what the snippet said was, "Reach for the stars, Langston Hughes." Like, okay, all right. So, and then the number two thing was, I'm going to talk a lot about branding and a lot about business here as well. There was no picture of him like next to it, and I was kind of like, I don't like that. I think that everything, and I get in trouble for this a lot, and if you feel differently, that's your opinion. I think you should brand everything with your face. Or not everything, but at least most things with your face, because I feel like that's the way that people are going to recognize you. That's the way that people are going to know when they see you. Oh, that's so-and-so of so-and-so. That is so-and-so of this. That is so-and-so of that. I may be wrong, but for me, and my husband even tells me this, but he is in no way, shape, or form any type of branding major. He won't even do a video. So anyway, so if you're listening to this, honey, I love you. But yeah, he's like, you got to stop putting your face on everything. But for me, I'm like, look, I'm going to brand this sucker till the wheels fall off. I want everybody to know when I put content out there, oh, that's Jessica. Oh, that's Jaw. That's Jaw Research Institute. I'm like putting my face on every single thing that I could possibly. If I can stamp my face on it, it's on there. So I haven't quite decided, and I'm recording this particular episode before I put up the podcast art for this particular podcast. So I'm not sure if I'm going to go with the podcast art that has my face behind it or not, but you'll see once I put it up there. So if you see my face behind the logo, just know that that's the reason why, because I think that everything should be branded with my face, because I want everyone to know Number one, I think it's a significance for me to acknowledge and give honor to my history and my culture. There are so many people out there that speak about the culture, that speak of the culture, that want to be a part of the culture. However, they are not in the culture. They don't live it every day, and I live it every single day. So I think it's important for me to have my face out there so that people see who the creator is. And whether or not they are biased about it, that is on their own terms. They can go ahead and be biased all they want. I really don't give a flying flip, right? But I think that for me to embrace myself and as an African-American woman, as a woman, as a black woman, as a woman with African descent, however you want to say it, I want to make sure that people see the image of my image. And I think for my children, I want them to know. So hopefully this podcast stays around for a long time. My great grandkids can go, man, my grandma was dope, right? So anyway, so back to Langston Hughes. As you can see, I go off on a tandem a lot. Back to Langston Hughes. So that's why I have bullet points. Take a star, Langston Hughes, 1921, my people.
So now we're going to get into some poetry flows.
Langston Hughes, stars. Oh, sweep of stars over Harlem streets. Oh, little breath of oblivion that is night. A city building to a mother's song. A city dreaming to a lullaby. Reach up your hand, dark boy, and take a star out of the little breath of oblivion. That is night. Take just one star. Now, I don't know for you, but for me, that gives me chills. Like that just, it really just, it brings in like the culture. I mean, this particular poem can be taken in so many different perceptions in so many different ways. But for me, I mean, it really just embodies and encompasses that there are so many, I mean, the world's busy, right? The world's busy, moving. You know, you're in Harlem, the streets are busy, there's things that are going on, there are people that are moving to a beat, to a rhythm, you know? And this little boy has his mother singing to him a song. This little boy is looking up into the night and thinking of all of the possibilities. And for this particular night, you know, this mother is empowering him. This poem is empowering him that you can reach for the stars and take one. And you know, things that may seem that are out of your reach, you can take just one star. That there's something out there for you. And earlier today, I was listening to My Leak from My Taught You podcast, and actually I wasn't listening to her, actually I was watching her on Periscope. It's that content that sticks out, right? So for her, or from her, what I got was, you have to work hard without knowing when it will pay off. And she said that there is a check out there written with your name on it. You just don't know the date that you'll receive it. And I was just like, wow, like that was dope, number one. So shout out to My Lead from My Taught You podcast. That was dope. But then number two, I was just like, you know what? That's the star. We all have a star out there in the sky that is for us and us only. But we have to reach out and take it. And sometimes it can feel like this world is so heavy. This world is just, you know, there's so much negativity. There's racism that we encounter. I encounter it. I'm going to speak for myself every day. But, you know, there's people that treat you differently. There's things that happen that are out of your control. Things that seem unfair. But we have a star. God placed a star for us and only for us. That is our level of success that only we can accomplish. You know, it's downloading that success that I've talked about in previous videos, you know, my videos. It's downloading that success, that it's there. We just have to download it. We have to access it. We have to press that button right there. You know, all you're typing and you go out and you might find something. You're like, wow, if I download this PDF or whatever, or download this JPEG, that has this content, this information on it, it's going to make my life so much better because it's valuable. We all have value, but we have to believe in our worthiness and in our value to reach for that star, because it's for us and us only. And while it may seem out of reach, it may seem like it's so high that we can't touch it, we can't. We have access to it, but we got to work, right? We got to put in the work. We got to put in the faith, because that's what faith is. Faith is to believe in something that is unseen, but know that it is attainable and that we can have it. To get out there and make it happen. And that's why I say make it happen so much. So I think this is a great way to end this podcast. Get out there and grab your star. Reach for your star.
So in essence, I created this podcast to bring exposure to our content, to bring exposure to the legendary content our content creators are making, to bring exposure to our culture, and to expose our gifts, the gifts that we have given to the world.